Happy heresies and welcome to the desert of the real. And since you are looking at my aging Gen X face, you know there's something special. And it is special. It's the first, perhaps the last, AB short that I want to provide. And please give me your feedback. Basically, I wanted to, and if I continue, want to take out interesting ideas or excerpts from different interviews and give you a little short. This specific short comes from an interview / presentation / AB Live I did at the end of summer with Dr. John Lundwall. It was entitled Amaze Cosmovision. And John did an excellent job bringing new scholarship and new revelations on the Mayans and also Mesoamericans in the Southwest in regards to their rituals, their spirituality, their archaeology, and so much more. And this excerpt that I'm going to be showing is where John talks about analogical thinking. What is analogical thinking? Well, as I've talked a lot about Aeon Byte, I feel we need to get back to understanding how the ancients saw the world, or more like how they experienced the world. And they truly experienced the world, the universe, in a more holistic, embedded, non-linear way. Dreamtime, I call it. And this was a very powerful way of being united to the tribe, to the universe, and to their destiny. And as I've also said, it seems Western man has forgotten about it. It got too obsessed with runaway linear thinking, uber logic, cause and effect, and all that. And that has caused a lot of damage to the planet, to the psyche of our collective psyche, if you would. And we are on the brink of something very bad if we don't change it. So understanding how the ancients saw the world will help and will also can also bring you a much more magical life if you would. So in the expert, John does talk about analogical thinking when it comes to the Mayans and other Mesoamericans. I think you'll enjoy it a lot. It should be said, too, that this is not one of those noble savage shows. This is not the first time I've talked about how we can benefit from this lost wisdom of other people. But on this show, too, I've always given a lot of cautionary tales. It doesn't matter if it's the Mayans, the Aztecs, the ancient Romans, the ancient Jews, the Persians, it doesn't matter. There are, again, cautionary tales of things that they did very wrong, points where they brought in more darkness than light, and it ended up destroying their civilizations. In this excerpt, John does exactly that, as he talks about the very curious habit and ritual of most Mesoamericans of scalping others. Whew. And yes, I'm sure you agree. I'm sure I've mentioned before that human sacrifice has never really ended, especially when it comes to the establishment. But it was going on, and this is an important lesson, too, for us to know. So this is all balanced. So again, I hope you enjoy. Give me your feedback. And at the end of this excerpt, I also have a special promo for a new feature on Aeon Byte, which is very holistic, but I believe will bring more light than it will darkness. So thank you and enjoy.
Now, we talked about this, years ago when I was on your show before, Miguel.
Right.
99% of human history exists in orality, people without writing. And these groups have no writing. The Maya had writing, but 95% of the population do not read and write, and they're still operating under the demands of orality, even though they have writing. Okay. Oral thinkers think analogically. And what that means is if two things are related, or if two things have similar features, similar colors, they appear at the same time, if there's some similarity in some way, they relate them and they connect them, and they say the cosmos connects them. Mm-hmm. For example, if a certain star rises on the horizon before the sun, and at the same time, the animals migrate into the valley, or a plant grows or blooms, they link the two. The rising of that star is the thing that's causing the animal migration or the blooming of the plant. This is how we get astrology. It's analogical thinking, where you are relating the cycles in the sky to the cycles on the ground, and you say one is causing the or related to the other, right? Actually, it's not that the rising star is causing the plant to bloom. They're analogical. The blooming plant, there's something in that in the star, right? It's kind of like a fractal. And so why would these societies want to take a head? Well, there's a reason. In Mayan cosmology, the soul comes from the highest heaven, the high heaven, by two deities, male and female, right? And the soul has the power of tulot. It's this power of animation that moves things, and it's that power that causes things to be created, to transform. And so it's this power of spirit. In Egyptian, it's the Ka, right? The Ka spirit.
Right.
It's a very similar concept, and it comes from the star world. This soul, and as it enters into the human world, the mid world, they too have an upper world, a mid world, and an underworld, right? As it enters into the mid world, it is activated by the heat of the sun. Okay, and then it enters into the head of the fetus. And that is why your head is constantly producing warmth. It's the heat of the sun that it animates. It's the divine power of the sun that animates the energy of your body, that creates the heat in your head. Okay. Also, the head contains all the divine functions: your sight, your smell, your hearing, your taste, your speech, which gives you the ability to speak, to command, to alter, and to change. All the divine functions of the cosmos are in the head, and the heat is in the head. So literally, the divine aspect of the cosmos enters into the head of every human being. Now, something else happens. When a human child is born, what's one of the first thing that happens when the woman's about ready to give birth? Her water breaks, right? And so there's her placental waters usher forth, out of the womb. And then she begins to dilate. And the first thing that appears is what? The head that's emerging from the other world, the whole connected to the other world, right? The first thing that comes out is the divine head, and it's preceded by waters, the breaking of the water. And further, almost always the baby infant cries and produces waters from the eyes. There's only a couple places where the human body produces clear waters: the placental waters at birth, the tears, right? And, actually, if you decapitate, there's some spinal fluid that can also be linked to these liquids. And what that means is a child born from the eternity into the material world comes by way of the head out of the womb. The head is created by waters because they're the first thing that pour out. And the head creates waters, the tears. The head is the divine essence that creates water. Okay? So you're living in an agricultural cycle, and your entire agriculture is based on, several things, but on your solar cycle and your rainy season. You need the rains, especially in the American Southwest. In these deserts, this is dry crop planting. Some villages irrigated their fields. A lot of them simply dug a hole deep down until they reached really wet soil. They'd drop 5 or 8 corn seeds in it with some, maybe some guts or some fertilizer of some sort. They'd cover it over. That's all they would do. It has to grow from that. And so they require the rains in order for that to happen. And it turns out, not only was there a 50-year drought between 1250 and 1300, but before that, there was about a 300 warming period of rain. There was an increase in moisture. The winters were shorter, the summers were longer, there was more precipitation. And that is why we see these exploding villages, Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, because a lot of maize is being produced. And so therefore you have surplus. And so you can grow your villages. So the bottom line is, in the Pueblos, they have words for the head or for the scalp. And those words, they call the scalp a word that means rain. The scalp is equated to rain. The scalp is called a light rain, a watered filled covering, a water being or a seed being. That's the name they have for the head or the scalp. And again, they're analogizing the head with the waters at birth that produce it, and the tears that come out of the eyes that produce water. The head produces the waters. And so the scalp then is that thing which contains the power of the cosmos, which will produce the rain. Okay, so if you want to offer a sacrifice to your sun deity or to your rain deity, what do you give them? You give them a head.
Yeah, it has it all. Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's what they're doing. So that's why they are literally. So a Mayan concept is Itz, I-T-Z. One of the Mayan solar deity in the Yucatan, Itzamna, is their solar god. And Itz is the essential substance of a thing. It's the essential, like it's the sap of a tree, it's the nectar of a flower, and it's the tears of a person. It's their essential essence. You shed tears when you cry, but what causes a person to cry? Pain surely causes a person to cry, right? When you cut someone's head off, they are crying and they're collecting the tears, the Itz, the essential essence that will bring the rains. However, laughter causes tears. Sorrow causes tears. Joy causes tears. It is all human experience that produce the tears. And they recognize that the tears is a product of divine feeling, good and bad, right? Pain and joy. And so that is the Itz, the essence of a person. So the crying eye motif is the Itz that brings, that brings the fertility. Makes sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. So they would scalp an individual and then sacrifice the scalp to the god. They wouldn't just keep it as, I guess you were talking about those racist movies where they just keep the scalps in their tent as a souvenir. It wasn't anything like that.
well, actually, this left picture here is a Hopi Pueblo, very early 1900s. And these two Hopi, and at the very top is a scalp that they've hung on it. And this is where they are. I mean, this is the pole that is the Axis Mundi. The offering is on top of the pole, and they're performing, a series of their ceremonies, including rain ceremonies. That's what that fringe staff is, by the way. The fringe staff that we looked at in those previous images is a rain staff. The fringes are analogical to the rain pouring from the sky. And so it's a rain staff, and the solar deity holds a rain staff and a head. That is the connection. It's the solar deity is bringing the rains. And so the Fremont, in March, the spring equinox, they're planting, they're germinating their seeds. In April, depending if the snow's gone, they're going to start clearing the field. May, they plant. In June, everything's up and running. And they plant actually a series, several waves of plantings in case they get an early freeze. The first planting won't work. So they'll plant 2, 3, 4, 5 plantings. But by summer solstice, all the plantings are done. And they orient all their rituals now to rainmaking because they've done all they can do. Unless you're irrigating your field, a lot of these villages are now depending on the rain. And so now they do the rainmaking ceremonies.
Well, somebody in the chat was saying, we got to watch out, John, because there's a drought in California. You don't want all these people to grab bone knives and start like chasing other people in the drought.
You know, last time I watched the news, I think that is happening. It's already happening.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Yeah. So, well, you know, this is a sort of dark side to an ancient cosmovision, or at least, you know, it's a side that I certainly wouldn't want to do that. But this is part of the cosmovision, is that we need something to bring the rains in. We've got to bring them in from the sun god and the rain god. And the most potent thing we have as a sacrifice is the rain bringer, which is a head or a scalp. And so, you know, we have no idea how often this occurred. You know, there are some people, I mean, in some quarters, it's politically incorrect to even mention that they were taking heads. But so some people say, well, maybe it's just metaphorical. No. Oral thinkers are concrete thinkers. If you see a head in a petroglyph, that actually happened. And so it's not a metaphor. It's certainly symbolic, but we have no idea how often did it happen annually? Did it happen monthly? Did it happen once every 8 years? Once every 5 years? We're going to go to why it actually may have been attuned to the Venus cycle here in a bit. And so, you know, we don't know anything about it. What we do know is actually the rain Venus cycle comes up from Mesoamerica into the American Southwest at about 1050 CE. And this is when this starts appearing in the Uinta Basin. And so that's how we know that what we're probably looking at is the latter end. So before that, what did they do? You know, were they taking heads before 1050 CE? The truth is, Miguel, if you study ancient cultures, actually headhunting is pretty common globally through history. I mean, and for the same reasons. The analogical thinking, it doesn't matter what the culture is. The head contains all the divine functions. And so it becomes one of the most powerful offerings you can make in any ritual context. And so you find headhunting in every continent, in every ancient society, in some form on every continent.